The night was quiet on the edge of the dying planet. Only the wind whispered through the metal towers of the research outpost. Inside, a human engineer named Ethan Cole sat alone at his console, staring at endless lines of data on his screen. He had been there for almost 2 years, studying strange alien signals and repairing satellites for the Galactic Union. The silence had become his only friend. The sky outside glowed faint red from the planet's thin atmosphere. Ethan took a sip of cold coffee and sighed, wishing for something, anything, to break the boredom. Then suddenly a loud alarm screamed across the control room. The sensor screen flashed red, showing a crash signature only a few kilometers away. A small ship had fallen from orbit, crashing deep into the desert valley. Ethan's heart jumped. This region was supposed to be empty. No trade routes, no colonies, no life. He grabbed his scanner, threw on his breathing mask, and jumped into his rover. The storm winds howled as he drove into the darkness. Sand and lightning mixed in the air, painting the sky with purple light. As he reached the coordinates, his headlights caught the wreck, a twisted alien ship half buried in the sand. The metal looked strange, almost alive, with veins of blue light pulsing weakly across its surface. Ethan stepped closer, feeling a strange hum under his boots. He aimed his scanner at the ship. Unknown design, the device said. No match in galactic records. That meant only one thing: illegal or forbidden origin. His orders were clear: report immediately. But his curiosity was stronger. He had to see who or what was inside. The ship's door was half open. Smoke leaking out, Ethan forced it wider, coughing as hot air rushed past him. Inside, he saw her. An alien woman, her skin shimmering like glass, her eyes dim like fading stars. She was lying on the floor. Holding a small glowing pod close to her chest, Ethan froze. He had never seen a living alien before, not like this one. Not one that looked so fragile, so human in her fear. She tried to speak, but her voice cracked like static. Her breathing was weak, her chest rising only slightly. Ethan knelt beside her. "It's okay," he whispered, though he wasn't sure she could understand. He opened his pack, pulling out a portable oxygen tank. He pressed the mask gently over her mouth. She gasped, her glowing eyes widening, her skin brightened, the blue light pulsing faster, and she was alive. Then she whispered something, words broken but clear enough to understand. "Help. My child?" Ethan looked at the pod she was clutching. Inside was a small creature curled up, barely moving. The glow inside the pod flickered, Ethan's stomach tightened. He had no idea what kind of being it was, but it looked like it was dying. He checked his scanner. The air around the ship was filled with toxic radiation. Neither the mother nor the child could survive long. He hesitated. Saving them would mean breaking galactic law. Helping unknown species without permission was considered biological interference. He could lose everything: his job, his license, maybe even his life. But as he looked at the alien mother trembling on the ground, he knew what he had to do. He lifted her carefully in his arms, feeling how light she was. Her transparent skin shimmered like soft glass under the storm's light. She looked up at him weakly, whispering again, "Please, they will come. They will come for me." Ethan didn't understand what she meant, but the fear in her voice sent a chill down his spine. He grabbed the pod with the infant inside and ran back to his rover. The storm grew worse, lightning splitting the sky above him. As he reached the base, the power flickered. He laid her on the medical bed, connecting her to oxygen and the life support panel. For hours, Ethan worked nonstop. He used every bit of medical tech he had, adapting human systems for her alien biology. Her strange blood reacted with his machines, glowing and fizzing like light in water. He felt sweat run down his neck, unsure if he was saving her or killing her faster. Finally, her breathing stabilized, and the baby's pod began glowing brighter. He sat back, exhausted, watching them breathe softly in that small moment. The lonely outpost didn't feel empty anymore. But then something strange happened. The lights flickered again, and the sensors began to beep. An unknown signal was transmitting from the alien ship. Ethan checked the screen. It wasn't random. It was a message repeating over and over in some alien code. He couldn't read it, but one thing was clear. It wasn't just noise. It was a call, maybe a distress signal, or maybe a warning. The alien mother opened her eyes weakly. She looked at him, her glowing pupils trembling. With her last breath before losing consciousness, she whispered, "They will come for me, and for you." Ethan stared at her, heart pounding. As the storm roared outside, he didn't know who they were. But he knew one thing for sure. Whatever was coming, it wasn't friendly, and it was already on its way. Ethan didn't sleep that night. The sound of the storm outside mixed with the quiet hum of machines inside his lab. The alien mother lay on the medical bed, her chest rising slowly under the soft blue light. Beside her, the small pod pulsed with life. The baby still breathing weakly through the artificial shell, Ethan sat beside them, tired eyes staring at the monitor, afraid to blink. He had done something no human was allowed to do. He had saved a forbidden life. The Galactic Union's law was clear. No contact, no help, no mercy toward the Virathi species. They were known as dangerous, unpredictable, and untouchable, yet, as Ethan looked at the alien mother's fragile body, she didn't seem dangerous at all. She looked helpless, and the small glow of her child's pod reminded him of hope, something he hadn't felt in years. Morning came slowly, a dull red light slipping through the cracked shutters of the outpost. Ethan prepared a mild oxygen mix for her lungs and injected stabilizer fluid into her veins. Her skin flickered faintly, colors shifting like water under sunlight. Then suddenly her fingers twitched. She opened her eyes, glowing soft and frightened for a second. She looked around, confused. Then her gaze locked on him. Her voice came weak but clear. Where am I? Ethan hesitated, not sure what language she spoke. But the translator implant in his wrist hummed to life. You're safe, he said softly. You crashed. I found you. She looked at the pod, clutching it weakly. My child, still alive, Ethan replied, glancing at the glowing sphere. I managed to stabilize it, but its breathing is unstable. She closed her eyes, relief and pain mixing on her face. My name is Lyra, she whispered. We were running from the hunters. Hunters? Ethan frowned. Lyra nodded weakly. The Galactic Union calls us monsters. They fear what they don't understand. Ethan stared at her, realizing the truth. She wasn't an invader, she was a refugee. And the baby, just a newborn caught in the middle of a galactic war. He checked his data pad. The infant's vitals were dropping, its tiny lungs struggling to process air. Human air was poison to it, and its natural system was failing fast. Ethan thought hard, then looked at the machines around him. Medical bots, filters, spare drone parts, oxygen modules. He could build something, maybe a substitute for its lungs, but it would mean breaking a dozen more laws. If the Galactic Union found out, he'd be branded a biotech criminal. He stared at Lyra, then at the fragile life in the pod. He made his choice. I'll build it, he whispered. Lyra blinked, confused. Build what? Artificial lungs, Ethan said, standing up, his voice full of quiet determination. Your child needs them to live. For the next several hours, Ethan worked nonstop. He connected wires, soldered circuits, and programmed nanofilters. Sweat rolled down his forehead, his fingers trembling from exhaustion. Lyra watched silently, weak but amazed. Humans were known for their machines. But this was something different. He wasn't building a weapon, he was building life. Finally, after hours of struggle, the device was ready. A small glass sphere with silver tubes and glowing vents. Ethan carefully attached it to the pod. The machine hissed softly, releasing clean, filtered air into the infant's lungs. Seconds passed like hours. Then the tiny creature inside the pod gasped. The blue glow brightened, pulsing stronger and steadier. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. Her voice broke as she whispered, Humans, you make life from metal. Ethan smiled faintly, relief washing over him. I just fixed what nature couldn't, he said quietly. But deep down, he knew this moment would cost him everything. If the Galactic Patrol found out he had touched Virathi blood, he would face execution. Still, as he watched the baby breathing peacefully, he didn't care. He had done the right thing. Later, when Lyra regained more strength, she tried to stand. Ethan helped her, guiding her toward a small viewing window. Outside, the storm had calmed and 2 suns rose over the red horizon. She looked at the sky, whispering, My people, they will come. They always follow the call, Ethan frowned. What call? She looked at him with sadness in her glowing eyes. The one your machine sent, Ethan turned sharply. Rushing to his console, the old scanner was blinking, sending pulses into deep space. His heart sank. His earlier work, the signal calibration, must have transmitted the baby's heartbeat. And if what Lyra said was true, that signal was now a beacon, not just for her people, but maybe for their enemies too. He turned off the transmitter immediately, but it was too late. Something out there had heard it. Lyra placed a trembling hand on his arm. "You saved us." "Ethan Cole," she whispered softly. "But now, you've told the stars where we are." Her words sent a cold shiver down his spine. He stared at the dark sky outside, wondering what was coming, and how long they had before it arrived. The hum of the machines filled the silent lab. Ethan glanced at Lyra and her child, both glowing softly under the blue light. For a moment it felt peaceful, almost safe. But far above the dying planet, something vast was already moving. Hundreds of signals. Approaching fast, the storm had ended. But the real danger had just begun. The desert around Ethan's outpost was quiet again, but it was the kind of quiet that made the air feel heavy. Inside, the blue light from the medical pod softly glowed against the metal walls, casting shadows that moved like ghosts. Ethan sat near the console, staring at the flickering signal logs every few seconds. The screen blinked with a faint trace of an outgoing transmission. The same pattern repeating again and again. It wasn't random, it was rhythmic. Alive, it was the baby's heartbeat echoing through space. He had turned off the transmitter hours ago, but somehow the signal kept pulsing. The alien pod seemed to be sending it on its own. Like it had a will of its own, he didn't understand how. But one thing was certain, someone, somewhere was hearing it. Behind him, Lyra lay weak but awake, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Her voice was soft, like a whisper carried by wind. "They will hear the call," she said. "My kind. They always hear the heartbeat of their young." Ethan turned to her, his face pale. "Your kind? You mean your people?" She nodded slowly. "The Veirathi. We are connected through the stars, through energy, through life." Her words sent a shiver down his spine. He had read myths about telepathic species, but hearing it from someone real, it made the idea terrifyingly true. The baby's breathing grew stronger, the glow brighter. Lyra reached out, her trembling hand resting on the glass. "He will live now," she whispered. "Because of you," Ethan smiled faintly. "Let's hope he gets the chance to grow up." The computer beeped again, pulling his attention back. Multiple unknown energy signatures appeared in orbit. Too far for visuals, but close enough to make the sensors scream. His chest tightened. They were coming. He didn't know if it was the Galactic Union or the Veirathi. Both could be equally dangerous. He tapped a few buttons, rerouting power to the outer sensors. Static filled the air as he tried to open a comm channel. Suddenly, a deep mechanical voice broke through. "Unregistered human outpost, this is Galactic Union Patrol 47. Report any alien activity immediately." Ethan froze. If he responded, they'd scan his base and find Lyra and her child. If he stayed silent, they might investigate anyway. He muted the channel, his mind racing. Lyra's voice cut through the tension. Soft but sharp. "They will kill us," she said quietly. "And they will kill you for helping me." Ethan turned to her, frustration and fear mixing in his voice. "I can't just hand you over. I saved your life." She looked at him, tears shimmering in her glowing eyes. "Then you must hide us," she whispered. "Hide us deep." He moved fast, covering the medical pod with metal shielding and rerouting power cables underground. He used old mining tunnels below the outpost, places no scanner could easily reach. It took hours, his hands shaking from exhaustion, but he managed to build a small, hidden chamber. He carried Lyra and the pod down there, the light flickering weakly as they descended into the dark. As he placed them inside, Lyra looked at him, her voice trembling. "You should not have done this, human," she said softly. "Now the fate of two species rests on you." Ethan gave a small, tired smile. "Then I guess I better not mess it up." When he returned to the control room, the screen flashed again, new signals appearing in the sky. This time they weren't from the Union. Their energy readings were organic, not mechanical. Alive. The pattern matched Lyra's cellular energy signature, multiplied 1,000 times. Ethan stared in disbelief. It was the Veirathi fleet. They had heard the child's heartbeat, and now they were coming. He tried to jam the signal, but the system refused. The alien frequency was too strong, spreading through every channel like a living wave. It wasn't technology, it was biology, the pod, the mother. The baby. They were connected to the ships through some kind of energy link. Every beat of the infant's heart was like a flare in the darkness, calling its people home. Lyra's weak voice came through the speaker he had left open. They will come soon, she whispered. But they don't know you saved us. They only know we are here. Ethan rubbed his face. The weight of his choices crashing down on him. He had saved one life, then maybe two. But in doing so, he had called an entire fleet of unknown power to a forbidden world. The console flickered again, showing an incoming message. Not from the Union. Not from Earth. It was written in symbols no human had ever seen. Yet somehow his translator struggled to interpret them. It came out broken but chillingly clear. We are coming for our own. Ethan sat there frozen, the message repeating over and over in the dark room. The baby's heartbeat glowed on the monitor, steady and strong. Outside, the wind began to rise again, the sky turning black. He looked out the window and saw the faint outlines of distant lights moving through the clouds. Hundreds of them descending silently. He knew then that the signal had done its job. The Verathi had heard the whisper, and they were no longer whispers now, they were thunder. The storm that was coming wasn't made of wind or rain. It was made of ships of fire, of the wrath of an entire species, and in the middle of it all stood one human, Ethan Cole, the man who had saved a mother and doomed himself in the same act. The first light of dawn never came that day. The sky over the desert stayed dark. Even as the planet's two suns began to rise, it was as if something massive blocked their light. Swallowing the morning whole, Ethan stood at the outpost window, staring upward, his breath caught in his chest. There, hanging above the clouds, were shapes, hundreds of them, floating like living shadows against the stars. His sensors screamed with warnings, red lights flashing across every monitor. Unknown energy sources, unclassified organic matter, gravitational distortion, all flooding his system at once. He didn't need the computer to tell him what they were. The Verathi fleet had arrived. He rushed to the underground chamber, his heart pounding like a drum. Lyra was awake, sitting beside the baby's pod, her glowing skin pulsing faster. She looked up at him with trembling eyes. They're here, she whispered. My people have come. Ethan nodded, his voice tight. I can see that, but they're not alone. He pointed to the monitor. Another cluster of ships had entered orbit, sleek and metallic. The Galactic Union Patrol. They had picked up the same signal and followed it. Now two powerful forces surrounded the small dying planet, and right in the middle of it stood one human outpost on his. The ground began to shake as the atmosphere burned with streaks of light. Ships were descending, both alien and Union. A storm of power and fear. Ethan grabbed Lyra's arm gently. Listen, we need to hide deeper, they'll scan the surface. But Lyra shook her head slowly, her expression full of sorrow. They will find me, Ethan. They will sense the child, her voice trembled. My people do not forget. They do not forgive. Ethan frowned. I saved your life. Doesn't that count for something? Lyra looked at him with sadness. Among humans, yes. Among Verathi, mercy is a weakness. Her words sank into his mind like ice. He realized then that the danger wasn't just from the Union. It was from both sides. The comm system suddenly activated, a robotic voice filling the air. This is Galactic Union Command, Outpost Delta 9. You are ordered to surrender any non-human entity for immediate quarantine. Ethan's jaw tightened. If I refuse? The voice answered coldly. Refusal will be considered treason. Then silence. He stood there, hands shaking, staring at the radio. He could turn Lyra in, save himself. But as he looked at the baby's small glowing pod, he knew he couldn't do it. He turned to Lyra. I'm not giving you up. She blinked, surprised. You would die for me? Ethan gave a small, tired smile. Maybe not for you, but for what's right. He ran back to the control deck, activating the outpost's defensive systems. It wasn't much, just old satellites and laser grids, but it was all he had. He began to reroute power, linking them together with his custom AI script. Come on, he muttered. Let's see what a human engineer can do. The screens came alive. The outpost hums growing louder. Outside, the first Union ship entered the lower atmosphere, its scanners lighting up the sands at that same moment. One of the Verathi ships descended, a massive living structure made of bone and crystal. Its tendrils reached into the clouds, shimmering with pale light. The two sides were seconds away from clashing. Ethan could feel it. The tension in the air was like electricity before lightning. Then a strange sound filled the outpost, not mechanical but alive, a low hum that vibrated in his bones. Lyra gasped, pressing her hands to her head. "They're speaking," she whispered. "The Queen is calling." Ethan turned to her, confused. "The Queen?" Lyra nodded, trembling. "The hive mind, she speaks through every Verathi. She knows I'm here." Before Ethan could react, the air around him shimmered, and a faint holographic image formed in front of him. It wasn't from his system. It came through his walls. Through his mind, a towering alien figure appeared, tall, graceful, terrifyingly beautiful. Her voice echoed without sound directly inside his head. "Human, why do you hold one of ours?" Ethan stepped back, trying to speak. I saved her. She crashed. She was dying." The Queen's eyes glowed brighter. "You interfered with nature," she said coldly. "You changed fate," Lyra's voice cried out weakly. "He saved my child. Without him, we would be dead." The Queen turned her gaze to Lyra, then to the baby's pod. For a moment, the air seemed to freeze, then distant explosions shook the ground. The Union had opened fire. Laser strikes hit the upper atmosphere, and Verathi ships responded, launching beams of pure energy. Ethan's outpost rattled violently, metal groaning under the pressure. He stumbled back to the controls, shouting, "Lyra, get down!" She covered the pod with her body, light flashing across her skin like liquid fire. The Queen's image flickered, her voice a mixture of rage and sorrow. "War has found you, human," she said. "You stood between two worlds. Now you must survive both." Her image vanished as the ground cracked open from the shockwaves. The sky above burned with the light of battle, ships tearing through each other like fireflies in a storm. Ethan stared upward, breathless. He had tried to save 2 lives now. The fate of entire species hung over his small outpost. As the ground shook again, Lyra whispered from the corner, "Ethan, the child is awake." He turned, his heart pounding. The baby's pod glowed brighter than ever, its heartbeat syncing with the strange rhythm of the Verathi fleet above. The Queen had heard it, and now through that single child, the galaxy would decide if Ethan Cole was a hero or the man who started a war. The world outside burned like a second sun, the sand turned to glass, and the sky glowed with fire as 2 mighty fleets fought above the planet. Ethan's small outpost shook under the impact, dust falling from every crack in the ceiling. The Galactic Union had unleashed its full power, and the Verathi answered with energy waves that made the air itself scream. In the middle of this chaos, Ethan Cole stood between 2 empires, protecting a mother and her child. He stared at the control screens. Half of them were already fried. Communications jammed, power at 20%, but his determination burned stronger than ever. He turned to Lyra, who was holding her glowing child close. "They're going to destroy everything," he said, his voice rough. "If we stay here, we're dead." Lyra looked up, her eyes trembling with light. "There is nowhere else to go." "Ethan, they are fighting over me, over him." She pointed to the small pod where the infant rested, its glow pulsing faster. "The Queen feels his heartbeat, and the Union wants to silence it." Ethan moved to the main console, typing fast, linking old satellites together. He was building something desperate, a shield, not one of metal or plasma, but one built from human creativity and stolen alien tech. He rewired the base generator, connected it to the baby's pod energy, and prayed the system wouldn't explode. "If this works," he muttered, "we might survive the next few minutes." The lights flickered. The machine screamed, and then a massive wave of blue light expanded outward. It wrapped around the outpost like a bubble, glowing softly. Outside, blasts from the battle above hit the barrier and dissolved into harmless sparks. Lyra gasped, eyes wide. You did it." Ethan gave a small smile, sweat dripping down his face. "Maybe for now, but it won't hold forever." Then came the voice, echoing through the comm system, cold, mechanical, and cruel. "This is Commander Tesh of the Galactic Union human facility. Surrender the alien and you will not be harmed." Ethan leaned over the mic, anger in his tone. "You call this not harming? You're burning a planet to catch one mother and her child." The commander's reply was ice. "You have violated interspecies law. Your act of compassion is an act of rebellion." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then I guess I'm a rebel." The communication cut off, replaced by static. Lyra looked at him, fear and awe mixing in her glowing eyes. "You stood against them," she whispered. "No human has ever done that," Ethan chuckled weakly. "No human ever had a reason like this." He turned to the pod. Watching the faint glow reflect off his face, the baby's light flickered gently, almost as if it understood what was happening. Outside, the Veirathi ship shifted formation. Surrounding the planet like a halo, they had stopped firing, their weapons silent. For a moment, Ethan thought they were retreating, until one of the massive organic ships began to descend. It hovered in the upper atmosphere, pulsing with strange energy. Lyra fell to her knees, whispering, "The Queen is speaking again." Ethan felt a pressure in his head, a heavy voice slipping into his mind. "Human Ethan Cole," the voice said, deep and commanding. "You have touched the lifeblood of our kind. You have changed destiny." He tried to respond, but his thoughts tangled. "I didn't mean to start a war," he said aloud, his voice shaking. "I just wanted to save them." The Queen's voice softened slightly. "Your intentions are pure, but the stars do not care for intentions. Only consequences." As she spoke, another explosion hit the barrier, this time from below. The Union had deployed ground drones, dozens of them marching through the dust like metal spiders. Their weapons glowed red, targeting the outpost. Ethan rushed to the defense terminal, activating his auto turrets. Old, rusty cannons rose from the sand, firing bursts of blue plasma. The air filled with fire and smoke. Each explosion shook the ground, but the shield held barely. Lyra cried out as sparks flew near her. Ethan ran to her side, shielding her with his body. "Stay down," he shouted. "I'll handle this." She grabbed his arm, desperate. "You can't fight both sides, Ethan. You will die." He looked into her glowing eyes, his voice calm. "Maybe, but not today." He sprinted back to the console, fingers flying over the controls. He rerouted more power from the generators. The lights dimming across the base. The baby's pod glowed brighter, feeding the shield with its strange energy. Then suddenly everything went silent. The drone stopped moving, the sky went still. Ethan froze, confused, then he saw why. A beam of white light descended from the sky, touching the ground right outside his outpost. It wasn't an attack, it was a transmission. And through it, the Queen appeared again. Massive and radiant, her voice echoed across the desert, reaching even the Union ships above. "Enough," she said, her words vibrating through the air. "The human has done what no one in the galaxy dared. He protected life without fear." Her tone grew colder. "Any who harm him now will face the wrath of the Veirathi." The Union fleet hesitated, their cannons lowering. The world held its breath. Ethan stood there, stunned, his heart racing. He had become the unlikeliest shield, a single human standing between two species, not by power, not by weapons, but by compassion. Lyra stepped beside him, holding her child, her voice trembling. "You are part of our story now, Ethan Cole," she whispered, "and the galaxy will remember your name." He looked at her, exhausted, his voice soft. "I never wanted to be remembered," he said. "I just wanted to do what was right, outside." The Queen's image faded into the stars. The battle was over. But the silence that followed carried its own danger. The galaxy had seen what a human could do, and it would never forget. The battlefield above the planet had gone silent. The air was heavy with smoke and static. The great fleets, the cold steel of the Galactic Union and the living ships of the Veirathi, floated in uneasy peace. Below, Ethan Cole's outpost stood half destroyed. Covered in dust and glowing debris, the once bright shield now flickered weakly, its blue light dimming like a candle in the wind. Inside, Ethan leaned against the console, breathing hard, his hands covered in burns and oil. He had fought for hours, defending a life that wasn't his to defend. Now the machines were dying and he was running out of time. Lyra sat nearby, cradling her child close, her glass-like skin glowing faintly. The baby was breathing steady now, its artificial lungs humming softly. But outside, both armies waited, each waiting for Ethan's next move. He looked out the cracked window and saw the shapes in the sky. Dozens of ships, the Union waiting for orders, and the Veirathi hovering like silent predators. He knew that a single wrong signal could start the war again. His radio buzzed suddenly, breaking the silence. "This is Commander Tesh," the voice said coldly. "Human, surrender now, or the Union will cleanse the surface." Ethan didn't answer right away. His gaze shifted to Lyra, who stared back with pleading eyes. "You can't give me to them," she whispered. "They will kill my child. And they will kill you too." Ethan walked to the comm and pressed the button. His voice was tired but firm. "Commander Tesh, I have a mother and a newborn here. Both alive, both innocent if you attack. You're no better than the monsters you fear. There was silence. Then came the cold reply. The law does not care for innocence. Only control. The signal ended. Ethan slammed his fist against the console. He was done with laws written by people who never saw the lives they destroyed. He turned to Lyra. There's only one way to end this, he said quietly. I have to talk to the Veirathi Queen. Lyra looked at him in shock. You can't, she doesn't speak with humans. Ethan smiled faintly. She already did. He walked to the center of the room where the last power source flickered. He connected his comm link directly to the alien frequency, the same one that had entered his mind before. At first there was static, a whisper, then 1,000 voices overlapping. Then finally her voice calm and ancient. Ethan Cole, she said, you still live. Ethan stood tall even as his knees shook. Yes, he said, and so does your child. Because I saved him. The Queen's voice was deep and distant. You disobeyed your own kind. Risked death for another species, why? Ethan hesitated, his throat dry. Because, he said softly, life is life, no matter what skin it wears. For a moment there was silence. Then Lyra gasped, her skin glowing brighter. The Queen was looking through her, speaking to both of them at once. You have done what no other has, human. You broke the chain of fear, her voice softened. But your kind will not forgive you. The Union will make you a warning to others. Ethan took a deep breath. I don't care what they do to me, he said. Just promise me you'll leave Earth out of this. There was another pause. You ask for mercy for your species? Ethan shook his head. No, just give us a chance to be better, outside. The clouds parted. The Veirathi fleet began to move. Their glowing ships aligning in strange patterns. Lyra looked out, her voice trembling. She's answering you. A great light descended from the sky, soft and golden, washing over the planet like dawn. The Union ships pulled back, their sensors blinded by the radiant wave. For the first time since the war began, there was silence, pure and still. The Queen spoke again, her voice echoing in Ethan's mind. We will not destroy your world, human. Not for now. Her tone darkened slightly. But remember this, compassion is not without cost. Ethan nodded slowly. I already know. Suddenly the ground shook violently. The shield finally collapsed, the roof cracking open above them. A stray Union drone had fired a last shot before retreating. The blast hit the outpost, throwing Ethan across the floor. Pain shot through his body, his vision fading. He heard Lyra scream his name. She crawled toward him, her glass-like skin flickering in the firelight. She placed her hand on his chest, her tears glowing like liquid stars. Don't leave, she whispered. You gave us hope. The Queen's voice echoed once more, softer now. He has done enough, my child. A gentle light surrounded Ethan's body, lifting him slightly from the ground. Lyra's eyes widened as the glow from her hands merged with his wounds. Sealing them, he coughed weakly, breathing again. What's happening? He whispered. Lyra smiled faintly through tears. She is healing you, Ethan Cole. You are part of the link now. Outside, the battle had ended completely. The Veirathi ships began to ascend, their glow fading into the stars. The Union fleet withdrew silently, their pride wounded more than their weapons. The war had stopped, not because of power, but because of a single human's choice. Ethan stood weakly, looking at the horizon. The sky was clearing, and for the first time in days, sunlight touched the desert again. Lyra stood beside him, holding her child close. The baby reached a small, glowing hand toward him. Ethan smiled, exhausted but alive. Guess I made the right decision after all, he said softly. Lyra nodded, tears shining in her eyes. You didn't just save us, Ethan. You changed the stars. When Ethan Cole opened his eyes again, the world was quiet. No alarms, no shaking, no fire. Only the soft hum of medical machines and the faint warmth of sunlight through glass. He blinked slowly, realizing he was no longer in his outpost. White walls surrounded him, clean and bright. He was inside a Galactic Union recovery unit. His body ached, his hands were bandaged for a moment. He thought it had all been a dream. The crash, the alien mother, the war in the sky. But then he looked down at his wrist. A faint blue mark glowed beneath his skin, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. He remembered Lyra's hand glowing as she healed him. She had left something behind, a connection, a reminder, a bond. The door hissed open, and 2 officers entered. Their faces were grim. One of them, Commander Tesh, stepped forward, holding a data tablet. "You've caused quite an event, Cole," he said coldly. "Do you know what happens to people who break galactic law?" Ethan didn't answer. He just looked out the window through the glass. He could see the desert far below, his outpost. Now nothing but a scar on the land. Tesh continued, pacing slowly. "Your signal reached every major network. Every fleet, every system. You defied orders. You interfered with alien biology, and worst of all, you communicated with an enemy hive." Ethan finally turned to face him, his voice calm. "I saved a mother and her child. That's all I did." The commander slammed his hand on the table. "You started a war." Ethan looked at him steadily. "Then why isn't anyone fighting now?" The room fell silent. The second officer shifted uncomfortably. Tesh's anger faded into unease because deep down, they all knew the war had stopped the moment the Veirathi Queen spoke. No one dared attack after that. The fleets had vanished, leaving only silence in their wake. After a moment, Tesh leaned closer, whispering, "The Veirathi sent a message, directly to the council." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "What did it say?" The commander hesitated, then read from his tablet. "Human Ethan Cole acted with honor, courage, and compassion. No harm shall come to his kind while we remember his name." He looked up, his voice low. "They called you a protector." Ethan sat there quietly, the words sinking into his mind. He had expected punishment, maybe execution, not this. He looked out the window again, the faint horizon glowing under the twin suns. "Guess compassion has consequences," he murmured. Days passed. Doctors came and went. Soldiers watched him in silence. No one really knew what to do with him. He was both a hero and a criminal. The man who disobeyed the law and saved the galaxy at the same time. But one morning everything changed. The building shook gently, not from an attack, but from something vast descending outside. Ethan rose from the bed and looked through the glass. And what he saw made his heart stop. The Veirathi fleet had returned. Their living ships hovered above the planet, glowing with soft blue light. People ran to windows, terrified, but the ships didn't fire. Instead, a beam of light projected downward, forming an image in the sky. It was Ethan's face, made of thousands of tiny particles of light. Floating high above the desert, beneath it, a symbol formed, a circle of 2 hands, 1 human, 1 alien, and beneath it, the words translated across 100 languages. "Life remembers kindness." Crowds gathered across the colony. For the first time in history, humans and aliens stood together, not in fear, but in silence. The monument of light pulsed gently, as if it was breathing, and above it the Veirathi ship sang a low, haunting hum that echoed through the atmosphere like music. It wasn't a threat, it was a promise, a song of remembrance. Ethan watched it all from the window. Unable to move, Lyra's words echoed in his mind. "You changed the stars," he whispered softly. "No, Lyra. We did." Later, when the light faded and the ships disappeared back into the sky, the world didn't go back to normal. The Galactic Council declared an end to isolation laws. The first peaceful talks between humans and Veirathi began within weeks. Scientists called it a miracle. Soldiers called it a ceasefire. But Ethan just called it hope. Months later, Ethan returned to the ruins of his outpost. The desert was quiet again, the wind brushing softly against the sand. He stood where the medical pod once rested in the sand. He found something small, a piece of glass glowing faintly blue. He smiled and held it in his palm. The glow pulsed once, then faded, but it was enough. He looked up at the sky, now clear and peaceful. "Wherever you are, Lyra," he whispered, "I hope your child's breathing easy." The wind seemed to answer him, carrying a faint sound, a gentle hum. Almost like a heartbeat, he closed his eyes and smiled. Maybe it was just the wind, or maybe it was her, Ethan Cole, once a lonely engineer on a forgotten world, had become something far greater. Not a soldier, not a savior, but a bridge between fear and understanding, between war and peace, and somewhere in the endless stars, an alien child breathed with lungs built by human hands. A reminder that kindness once given can echo forever. As the sun set behind the red horizon, Ethan whispered one last time, "Maybe humanity isn't alone anymore." And for the first time in the galaxy's long, violent history, that might have been true.